So today I want to talk maintenance because it's getting late in the year. And of course there's a train. We're just gonna have to deal with it. There was a train last week too. There's a train this week. Oh well. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about maintenance because it's getting later in the year. A lot of people are putting up their rigs, or maybe they already have put up their rigs and winterized them and gone through all the maintenance checklist. And so, but what if you're going to use it some more? You know, how do you keep track of when you're going to maintain stuff if you're constantly using it? For example, since we live in ours full time, we're going from here in Alabama, where it's not cold, to Georgia. It's probably going to get a little bit colder, you know, as the winter moves on, and then we're probably going to end up going to Florida. We're never going to actually stop using our rig. So there won't be a period of time where it's actually technically winterized, but we do need to keep up on maintenance. And a lot of those maintenance intervals that you see on the internet, you know, 6 months for this, a year for that, you know, whatever, every month, differ when you use your rig more. So I'm going to show you a few things that we check pretty often. And then I'm also going to show you how I keep track of it all, because there's kind of a lot. So let's get started. First things first, battery maintenance. So house batteries. If you have lead acid batteries, checking the water level in them every month is really, really important. And I'll tell you a kind of a funny story. It's not funny actually. When I bought this used at the dealership, the person that did the walk around with me told me that I had two. Then 3 weeks later, I'm using my motorhome and my batteries went dead in like no time flat. Well, then I come to find out, because I was new at this, that there was two underneath the steps too. I have actually four, and those batteries had not been maintained for a very long time. Fortunately, I was able to save them and everything is fine. But don't forget to maintain your batteries every month. I check the maintenance, or I check the water level in the batteries, and then I use Simple Green to spray them down and rinse them off every month. Be careful of everything in there, don't ruin anything, but you gotta keep them clean, because that cleanliness is, to me, the most important thing about maintenance, because then you can see problems. All right, what's the next thing? Chances are, if you have an RV, you have a Suburban or very similar style hot water heater. And this thing should be checked and flushed every 6 months. And there's a couple other things too that you should check. And actually, you should check this at your regular sticks and bricks house too. Let me show you. So every month, I would definitely come in here and blow this tube out. You just need a vacuum cleaner with a little blow on it. It doesn't take much, but dust can build up in this tube right here and cause you to have A, a fire hazard, or B, a loss in efficiency on how your propane part of your hot water heater lights up. So you want to make sure that you blow any cobwebs or any kind of dust or anything out of there. I just take the cover off, give it a quick inspection every month. If you do it all the time and you keep up on it, chances are that all you have to do is literally just give it a blow, like blow with your mouth, and it'll clean out. But if you leave this, bugs and spider webs and dust and stuff can get in there. Make sure you clean that out. And then you see this little dude down here? This is your anode rod. This is a big nut that you have to take out, and there's an aluminum rod on the other side of it that kind of comes all the way out. And what that does is that corrodes so that the inside of your hot water heater doesn't corrode. When I first bought this, it was completely corroded, and it had nothing left to corrode. So it was potentially doing damage to the inside of my hot water heater. So I replaced it, and I also pulled that. When you pull this out, all the water comes out, and you rinse out all of the little calcium buildup and stuff that happens. This is kind of important because, especially when you're moving around and using different water from different places, different levels of minerals and stuff are going to get stuck in your hot water heater, and it'll have this little white calcium stuff. Maybe you'll see it in the inside of your tea kettle on your stove, only way worse in here. It'll build up big chunks, and it'll over time do damage to the inside of your hot water heater, and it will make your hot water heater lose efficiency as that stuff builds up. So every 6 months, every month, make sure you blow this out. Every 6 months, make sure you pull that and depressurize it. We'll do a video on how to do it, because actually I need to do mine, but I don't want to do it here. So we'll do a video about that. But you make sure you drain this, flush it all out, and put it all back together. I do that about every 6 months. Okay, let's talk tires. Number one, make sure that you check your tire pressure every time you move your rig. Every time. It's a little easier for me because I have the TPMS system, the TST TPMS system on here, tire pressure monitoring system. We have a whole video about that. It is a fantastic unit. Yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it is unbelievable. The other thing I do is once a month, I use Simple Green and I clean the tires all the way around, number one. And then number two, I use 303 UV tire protectant on the outer tires once a month. And then at that time, I do an inspection on the tires, make sure there's no cuts, make sure anything like that. I kind of actually do that every time we move, but if you're not moving very often, it's a good thing to do once a month. If you're not using your rig, it is very good to go and drive your rig once a month. Get the tires up to operating temperature, which is 6 to 10 miles or so, because all the petroleums and all of the way the tire is made, when you get it up to operating temperature, it will keep it softer, it will keep it from dry rotting. Everything's softer. Tires get hard as they get old, and if you use them on a regular basis, it will keep this from happening. Okay, let's talk generator maintenance. First of all, I would definitely recommend running your generator every month for a couple hours under load. That means using your air conditioners, turn both your air conditioners on if your generator is capable of running it, full load for probably 2 hours once a month. That will keep your generator, using it is better than not using it. If you hear everybody, my motorhome's 10 years old and it only has 45 hours on it, that's not good. Use that thing. The other thing is you want to get the manufacturer's service interval, and check your oil and make sure you do oil change, filter change, as well as the spark arrestor on the exhaust. This will obviously vary for everybody, but because we're on shore power so often, I actually have to remind myself to do the maintenance on this and to use the generator, because we're on shore power so much that we don't use it very often, and chances are that's the case for you. We don't do a whole lot of dry camping, so make sure that you keep up on that. Something that a lot of people don't think about is inspecting and leak checking their propane system. Obviously, a lot of this stuff is internal to the rig, so it's harder to do, but at least on a lot of the areas that are accessible, this valve, which gets used more often when you when you fill it, as well as some of these other fittings, just spray soapy water on them, make sure they're not leaking, because vibration going down the road, a lot of that stuff can cause that to happen. So make sure that you don't have any propane leaks. And a lot of people recommend to have it professionally checked like once a year. If you're using it a lot and you're around it a lot of times you'll be able to detect those. Obviously, we have the detection thing. We'll get to that in a minute. We won't get too much into detail on this because this is definitely different for everybody. We have a Ford F53 chassis, so oil change intervals, check your windshield wipers, check all your coolant, check your air conditioning system, all your chassis lubrication, make sure all that gets checked on an interval that you are comfortable with, number one, and and based on your manufacturer and also how much you use the thing, because there's a lot of differing theories about how long it should be between oil changes, number one. And number two, there's also the whole sitting versus being used thing. If you're driving it more, that affects your oil change interval. So look into that a little bit for your particular chassis, but make sure that you keep up on it. That whole oil change thing also goes for your towed vehicle. We tow the Jeep. The Jeep only has 30,000 miles on it, but it also has towing miles on it too. So you almost have to keep 2 record books for your towed vehicle. You have to keep a record book for the miles that you actually drive it, and you also have to keep a record book for the miles that you tow it, because a lot of the chassis and the tires and everything that hits the ground and the axles and bearings and brakes and all those things get more wear than the engine and the odometer may indicate. So you got to make sure that you just stay up on that maintenance separate from the maintenance that you actually drive it. About every 90 days, I do an inspection on my slide seals and my awning. We don't use the awning very often because we move so much. We don't put out a bunch of camping stuff and have a whole big setup outside. But we do inspect it because when you don't use something, it's almost as bad as when you use it too much or abuse it. So we make sure that we do the inspection on the awning and the slide toppers. And we also treat the slide seals with a product. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Okay, let's talk roof. Nobody likes leaks. We don't want leaks. About once a year, I come up here and clean this, which it's actually due for. When we get back to Georgia, I'm gonna do it. I also come up here at least once a month. And in fact, when there's more storms and raining and wind and stuff's blowing around, or we're in the woods a lot with a lot of tree cover, I check up here even more often, because if a branch comes down and does damage and I don't see it, obviously that's bad. So I make sure that I inspect very often. Inspect around all the devices and potential openings on the roof. Make sure the die core is nice and healthy. Make sure it doesn't have any brownness or dirtiness that indicates that water has gotten up underneath it. And while I'm up here, I take off my AC condenser covers and I make sure that there's no debris in there, make sure they're clean, make sure they're not broken or they're not gonna fly off. And I also check my vent covers. I've had in the past them wiggle, you know, wind is blowing through them the whole time you're going down the road. And so the fatigue of that, just all the whole time, can loosen them up a little bit. So I make sure that they're tight so that they don't fly off on me going down the road. Remember, all this stuff is moving and vibrating all the time. So that's why we need to check it often. About every 6 months, I come up here on the roof and I take the covers off. And then what I do is use a coil cleaner and I clean the coils and I blow out the compressors and I clean everything all out. There is because on the condensers, because of that condensation that happens, some small corrosion and attraction of dirt and all that sort of stuff can happen. And so if you keep those clean, the efficiency of your ACs will work a lot better. And as long as you maintain these things, they'll last a super long time. But I think a lot of people forget about that. So cleaning those and then cleaning the filters on the inside on a monthly basis. You see where this gets all confusing, because the top of the air conditioner is 6 months, the bottom of the air conditioner is 1 month. You see what I'm saying? Let me show you how we keep track of all of this stuff. All right, so it's been a couple of days since I shot that last part. Little sidetrack note here. Hurricane Zeta hit southern Alabama pretty hard. It rained super hard. We had to go and like check for leaks again. We didn't have any leaks. Everything was good. But man, the wind was hitting the side of the coach so hard. And it's crazy. It wasn't like windy. It was like it was slamming. It was like hitting the side of the coach. Like gusts would come and be like boom, and it would like pop. It was crazy. I've never been through that in a motorhome before. So that was a new experience. Let's just say those couple nights we did not get a whole lot of sleep. Everything's fine though, and we survived, so that was pretty cool. And everything, no floods, no leaks, no big problems because of it. We were without power for most of a day, so we ran the generator quite a bit. But we were able to get through that and everything was cool. So anyway, so let's talk about this maintenance stuff. I just wanted to fill you in, that was crazy. This maintenance stuff. So how do we keep track of it all? This is an app that is part of, so RV Life is a package of apps. I'll put a link to it where you can go to the iTunes store and get it. And then once you have that app, it's like $50 a year or something. Then it gives you a bunch of stuff. We've talked about RV Trip Wizard, the navigation specific to, you know, the motorhome stuff, so you can fit through stuff. It's pretty awesome. But one of the other things is then once you have that subscription to that app in the link below, then you also have access to maintainmyrv.com. It's part of it. And so just to give you a little rundown, basically, when you look at the screen, you can put your towed vehicle and your motorhome in there. And then you can put in all of the various systems that you want to maintain. You can set maintenance schedules for them, and there are a bunch of suggested ones based on what most people do with this stuff and what most people suggest. So, you know, if it's 6 months, if it's every month or whatever, and then it will send you a notification when it's about time to do it. When you look at mine, you'll see like, oh, there's a bunch of red on the generator. Well, partially that's because there's things you should check every month. There's some things you should check, you know, every 6 months and by hours. So you can put the mileage on your motorhome, you can put the hours of your generator. And I'm just now getting this all set up the way I like it. It's not 100% perfect, but I'm really finding that it's going to help me to be able to maintain all of this stuff and be able to do and keep up on it all, because it's not that it's a lot. It's like, and I don't want, for people that are new to RVing, I don't want you to feel like it's overwhelming, all the stuff you have to take care of. But there's a little task that you kind of have to do every week, especially if you're living full time. You know, you're just gonna keep up on stuff. It's not like, oh, I have all this work to do, but it's like, I just have to do 1 or 2 little things every week to constantly keep up on the entire thing. And it's not overwhelming as long as it's on a schedule, and as long as you know, all right, this week I need to check the filters on my air conditioners. Next week I need to, you know, check whatever. You might check 1 or 2 things every week, and 90% of the time you don't actually have to do anything. You just have to look at it. It's just like a make sure it's okay kind of thing. But, you know, you'll find a loose screw, you'll find something that's rattling, and you'll keep up on it, and your coach doesn't fall apart, and you have way less problems. I think a lot of people that have problems with their coaches, it could come down to maintenance a lot of times. You know, I know quality, people talk about quality, but I think it comes down to maintenance a lot of times. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you check out our live hangout on Sunday night at 9:30 Eastern time. And also, if you go to patreon.com/musicandmascara, you'll keep up with us kind of every week where we are. We do a little update thing over there. And then everybody that's seeing this video right now on YouTube, people on Patreon have been seeing it for a whole week. So you can get over there and see stuff ahead of time and kind of keep up better. Thanks for hanging out, and I guess we'll see you Sunday night.